So I'm having a chat with Grant of Feeder. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Jim. I'm quite busy at the moment. It's all a bit hectic, but, all good. I've just been in rehearsals. But, yeah, now it's all coming together.
Good. There's a lot coming up for you, which we will touch on all of those things. But we've been playing a new single of yours called The Healing recently. What can you tell us about the single?
Yeah, well, it's the first track on the album, the new album, which is out 18th of March, called Torpedo, is the album. Song I probably wrote, well, it was sort of written sort of during lockdown, really. It's probably one of the most anthemic tracks on the new album, sort of like classic Feeder. I don't know if you've heard the full version or the brutal radio edit, as I call it. Have you got both versions there, or you?
I'd imagine so. Yeah, I'd imagine I have both.
Okay, well, it was written to be a really big, grand song. I had this kind of almost like rock opera in my head when I was trying to write it. It sort of touches on lots of things, lots of world issues, anything from climate change to just community, really. Just things that were happening, in the press at that time, little flashbacks. I think it's a really universal song. I think it's come out, obviously, at a really good time. We're just coming through a very difficult time, obviously, with the COVID situation. And now we're going through a weird time again with all these world wars. But, it feels like a good time for it. It's almost like a recovery song, I suppose, in some ways. But it's sort of undeniably Feeder. It's been really well received, so far, with the fan base and at radio. So, yeah, I'm really happy.
Good, and that is, as you mentioned, coming up your new record, Torpedo, out in a couple of weeks' time. How does this record sound in comparison to your previous records?
It's definitely got some early Feeder elements. Obviously, we're quite a diverse band. People that know the band obviously know that. But some people may only know Feeder from our more sort of kind of bigger radio songs like Just What I'm Feeling, But Rogers, those kind of tracks. But that's a tiny part of what we are as a band. We come from a very alternative rock background, but we're very song based. So some albums tend to be a bit heavier, some are more anthemic, some are a bit more indie rock, a bit more bouncy. Some have a bit more of a kind of string acoustic element. I think this album has still got all those elements, but it's definitely more of a rock album, this. It just felt, I don't know if it was the frustration of not being able to play. When I started writing, obviously during lockdown, I brought a bit of a rock element to it. I'm not sure, but if you come to see Feeder live, we do have some heavy moments, but I think there's something there for everybody. I think this record is, I didn't want to dilute that message on this record. I wanted to keep it like pretty rock driven. There's a few mellow moments on there as well, just to give you a break. But it's definitely one of the heavier Feeder records, I would say. There's been other records that have sort of touched on this. All Right Electric, is pretty full on. That was quite a heavy Feeder record. And obviously, our early kind of works, like Polythene and The Swim, and even the Renegades album. So yeah, it sort of touches on that. But I think this album is actually quite focused and it's quite like direct. And we kind of really worked hard to try and keep it that way.
Good, and obviously this record was made and written and produced and everything during different times, during a pandemic, during lockdowns and quarantines. How much of an effect did that have on the record?
Well, it wasn't too bad because, things have changed a lot. In the past sort of 10 years, like recording is a whole different thing now. Obviously with Pro Tools and Logic, people can make albums in their bedrooms. And I've got a little home studio, which I do, and most of the Feeder stuff, I work with the great engineer that co-produces with me, a lot called Tim Rowe, and we work, we do a lot of the stuff. In fact, we've done most of the last sort of 3 Feeder albums here. So so in some way it didn't affect us too much. But obviously I couldn't get together, say with Taka, we couldn't go in any big studios, as a band and do stuff. But to be honest with you, it didn't really affect us too badly, and in some way it gave me and Tim a bit more time to really focus on what we want to do with the record and the production. It gave Taka a bit more time to really focus on his bass parts. So I think in some way it brought something actually quite good to the record. But obviously, it would have been great to have all got together in a big studio and got a phone off to California or whatever and sort of made that album. But albums aren't always made that way anymore, so it hasn't really been too bad. Obviously, we had to find big studios to do the drums because obviously I can't do drums here. That's why we need a big drum room. But we did manage to find, there was times where we could get in if it was a very small bubble. do, some of the heavy drum stuff like that there. But otherwise, it was all done here. So, it's been a godsend having my little studio, really.
Yeah, I can well imagine. And luckily, all being well and everything's being back to normal now, you're getting to go back out on the road, and you've got a nice little run of headline dates coming up.
Yeah, we have. Obviously, we did a few festivals at the end of last year, and then it sort of started to go, a bit pear-shaped again. And now things seem to be, looking. I mean, it's not back to normal yet. It's still a bit chaotic. The industry's been hit for six. Obviously, as many industries have, but it's, there's a lot of crew that aren't around, that were around that have now, decided not to do music anymore. So, it's hard to find good people. The people that are out there seem to be really busy, which is, it's great for them. So it has been a bit of a tricky few months just trying to get our team back together again. But we're really looking forward to going back out. We're starting off full-on rehearsals in about 2 weeks' time. And then the tour starts in Brexit on the 23rd of April, and then we finish up at Brixton Academy on the 6th of May, which is going to be a great night. And then, if all goes well, hopefully we'll be doing festivals, and there may be some more shows around this album. We're just going to see how things go, because this year is still it's a bit of a backlog of tours at the moment, because tours that were moved from 2 years ago are happening sort of now. So even getting availability in venues was actually very difficult. So we're quite lucky to have even put this tour together.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And obviously, the rest of the year you'll be wanting to be out on the road. Are you thinking about taking it? Yeah, are you thinking about taking it overseas? What's going through the heads at the moment?
Doing Fuji Rock Festival again. We were booked for the main stage. Fuji Rock is a fantastic festival. So in Japan, it's one of our favourites, and we've done it probably eight times now over the years, and it's absolutely amazing. Honestly, I can't explain how what a great vibe it is there. But we were meant to play the main stage last year, and then that got pulled. They only had some Japanese bands because they couldn't get obviously Western bands in. So we're hoping that that we might get back on there again this year. If not, it'll be next year. And then they talk about going to Europe. I'm not sure about America. I think this year is going to be more focusing kind of mainly on UK and maybe some stuff in Europe, possibly like Japan. And then I think next year, that's when things will hopefully really start to feel a bit more normal. But I think this year is going to be really positive. Don't get me wrong, I'm not being negative because, I'm just, pleased that things are getting back to normal. But I think it's just going to take a little bit, of time just for things to sort of settle in for people. And I think people are still nervous about buying tickets, Tours aren't exactly flying out at the moment. People want to see bands again, but I think people are still a bit nervous about buying tickets, So hopefully, the next few weeks when people realise we are back to some sort of like normality, people will, people have missed that experience, of seeing live music.
Yeah, I totally agree. And obviously with the lockdown and the pandemic having happened and not being able to tour, you must have had a lot of time on your hands. Obviously, you were writing this record, but have thoughts been in place for what the plan is for the future and release number? What will it be? Album 12? Is it that's in the future?
Well, I've basically written about almost 3 hours worth of material. So basically, what happened was before the lockdown thing really kicked in, we were touring. There was meant to be a second half for our previous album tour, the Tallulah tour. That got pulled, and we really upset about that because that first leg of the tour was so vibey for us. We had a great time. We were just, I think we were playing really well and kind of everyone was really enjoying it, and then it all came to a grinding halt. So, but sort of during that end time, I started writing. We've done some recording. I think we've got about 12 songs sort of mixed ready. So all those tracks have not been used on this record. So the plan was at one point to do, for this to be like a double album. Then we decided to maybe do the kind of double album idea, but sort of have it in two halves. So this is the first half, which is I suppose I'm calling like the kind of like post sort of like COVID album, and then all the stuff that we did before is going to be out hopefully next year. So there'll only be a year gap between records, which we've never done before. But I think we've got all these songs, we've got all this music. There's no rules anymore, so why not?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the plan. Lots more feeder music. I've got lots of stuff. Obviously, there's still some mixing to do and some bits and bobs, but I think we've got about 20 more tracks, so we're looking forward to sort of obviously finishing them off and hopefully putting out another record next year as well, which will be like the kind of like twin sister of this one, I suppose, or whatever.
Good. Excellent. Well, Grant, it's been a pleasure having a chat with you.
Thank you very much. Cheers.